Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to talk about Cinco de Mayo and why is it that we celebrate it in the United States. Many people, including people of Mexican descent, ask, why is it that we celebrate Cinco de Mayo in the United States when in Mexico is not really a holiday? It is not Mexican Independence Day, and it is not the anniversary of the Mexican Revolution. So what is it, right? The day actually celebrates the victory of one battle, the Battle of Puebla, when the poorly equipped and trained Mexican army defeated the French at that one battle against the French, who wanted to occupy Mexico and wanted to install their own emperor in Mexico. So at that time, in 1862, the United States was having its own civil war, and the French Empire saw this as an opportunity to colonize Mexico, since the U.S. wouldn't be able to interfere. And actually, the Confederacy was sympathetic to the French, and the Union, the North, didn't want to antagonize the French for fear of them siding and creating alliances with the South. So although the Battle of Puebla was just one battle and the French were not kicked out of Mexico until 1867, with the help of the United States at that point, it was a very symbolical victory that inspired Mexicans and gave them the courage to keep fighting and keep resisting. So then why is it that Cinco de Mayo is a big celebration in the US if it was just one battle and it didn't really end the war? Well, the thing to understand is that Cinco de Mayo is a Mexican-American tradition started in the United States. When news reached California about the Mexican victory against the invading French army at the Battle of Puebla on May 5th, Mexicans and Mexican-Americans in California had a spontaneous celebration that included fiery speeches and music and demonstrations of patriotism. And not only did they celebrate, they also began to organize themselves through the mutualistas, the mutual aid societies, and the juntas patrióticas, patriotic organizations that put together events for like Mexican independence celebrations and stuff like that. And so they began to organize themselves so that they could support the Mexican people in their fight against the French. So Cinco de Mayo celebrates the Battle of Puebla, but it is a holiday started in the U.S. by Mexicans and their Latino allies. Mexican Americans and other Latinx people put together fundraisers to send money and weapons and other supplies to the Mexican troops so that they could keep fighting. But what is important to emphasize, and most important for us today, is that they also use those events and organizing to create a strong sense of identity, community in the United States, and to advocate for Latino civil rights, which at the time were not being respected. Remember that there had been a war between the United States and Mexico that ended in 1848 with the U.S. taking about half of the Mexican territory and all the people living in it. So that was less than 2 decades before the Battle of Puebla, and that Mexican Americans were now facing intense racism and discrimination, despite the protections of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that ended that war, which had promised citizenship and cultural rights and land rights. And so they used those opportunities of Cinco de Mayo events to also organize themselves. Another thing to point out is that the California Gold Rush also brought about a lot of violence and land theft directed at Mexicans and other people of color. So even after the French were expelled, Cinco de Mayo continued to be celebrated as a day to build ethnic solidarity, to organize, to promote cultural and political resistance, to promote a positive identity as Mexicans, and very often also to promote cross-border solidarity and alliances with Mexico and Latin America. And there's a long history of Chicanos, Chicanas, Latinx people supporting the decolonial struggles of third world peoples. If we look at the history of the Chicano movement, for example, there were expressions of solidarity with Palestine, with Vietnam, later on with El Salvador and Guatemala, with Puerto Rico, right? And so that is something that, as we celebrate Cinco de Mayo, we should remember and emphasize, right? So it is this spirit of solidarity and resistance that we need to keep alive this Cinco de Mayo. And this is why we still need to celebrate it and not let it be hijacked by corporations who just want to make profit out of our people. So today, do celebrate, have a good time, but keep that spirit of resistance. Celebrate that resistance, celebrate that resiliency of our people, celebrate that spirit of solidarity, celebrate the beauty of our culture and our history. Peace.